everyone, and welcome to the one, the only, the Fan Show. I'm your host, as always, the T-Man, Richard T-Man, and the man in the other box, well, he still rides around on his Razor scooter. It is Father Malcolm McCoy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to be back. And I wish I still have a Razor scooter. I'll settle for my Heelys. I'll settle for my Heelys for now. But
Those things were
man,
clutch back in the day, man. I remember like they were the
what
hot thing for a minute, and
they were?
everybody had one. But
I'm telling you, man.
skateboards have stood the test of time somehow, some way. I was convinced that any Zoomies still standing after the pandemic had to be a drug front because it's like people still skateboard. Like I don't know.
There's no way. There's no
Ugh.
way. I can't. I definitely don't see him around my side. So it's something going on.
Well, this is episode 490, and yes, it did take us a minute to get here. What was supposed to be a quick little week off, well, I went to Florida, turned into 2 weeks off because I came back and got COVID. Like
Rich,
4 years
rich.
later and across 3 states, and finally got COVID. I still feel like I could
Mm.
get the t-shirt that says never got COVID because I think like there's a window where when stuff is at like its peak, like if you don't get it
Mm.
in that first year or two, then you can say you didn't get it. And to just randomly get it now is just like so weird. So I'm back and yeah, man. What a week Florida was,
Well,
man. That was
man,
fun. So it was like in the high 80s and 90s the whole week, which was fantastic. But I wear suits, right? So
yeah.
I was but the food was great. I was on three panels and I had one presentation. The three panels were great. I shared the panel with some current Hall of Famers and then some alumni that just have fantastic resumes. And
Yeah.
so did my presentation and man, it was, I think there were like three open seats. Like it was at capacity, like just about. And
Man.
that was crazy because when we got in there, I got in there like half hour early to set up and make test the audio and make sure everything was working right.
Yeah.
And Dan's just like, how many do you think? And I'm like, I honestly don't know. Like I'm a
Mm.
2020 grad. I've worked in a small market. I worked with the Omaha Beef, which people still don't believe is like a real football team. And you know, I don't know. I said if there's a dozen in here, I'll be happy. And then all of a sudden, like 15 minutes before we were supposed to start, they come in and ask if they can start letting kids in because they're lined up, and I'm like, what? So I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So they start piling in there, and I saw photos from. Well, I attended one other sports panel. A buddy of mine who works with the Kraken over in Seattle. He's an alumni. He did a presentation, and I sat in on that one because I had the time to. And then another buddy of mine did a presentation, and I saw a few photos from that, and theirs were not as full as mine. So I'm not like
Mm.
trying to rub it in, but it was just like for my first presentation, I think that was pretty good. So
Talk that talk, Rick. Talk that talk, man.
I mean,
That's cool.
it was crazy, and then thankfully because it was the panels and presentations start at 10 and they end at 4. And so thankfully because mine was the last one of the day, they didn't have to kick us out and we could answer
Yeah.
like all the questions. So we went about 15 over. So that
Yeah.
was crazy too. But yeah, just what a week. Amazing food, the Hall of Fame ceremony. It's just such a well put together production that they do down there every year. So that was great. And then just being around everybody and all those different walks of life. Because you have, you know, I was having a beer with the guy who does who works with Lady Gaga on her tour and has produced musicians like that, and another guy who
Yeah.
was, you know, on the newest Spider-Man video game for PlayStation, you know, Spider-Man 2. Like he did work on that, and it's just like, God, man, like
Got some heavy hitters up there, it sound
if
like.
this I feel like at my high school reunions I'd be like top three, right? But when it comes to like if these things had reunions, man, and not Hall of Fames, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna just check myself over in the bottom 20. So it was
Man.
really a great time. We met a lot of great people, and so it was well worth the time off. I don't know if it's very fair to come back and get hit with COVID after that. It seems a little unnecessary, but we are recovering. We are here. Um,
Mm,
we've got a lot to catch up on, so we're going to skip the good, bad, and funny for the week, and we'll just kind of go over our some of our favorite moments from the last 2 weeks. I gotta say, first one that comes up for me is Kaplan's walk off for Quad
mm.
City. That game that Friday night, it was the only game that happened, and just for him to nail that thing, like that was crazy. In the world of indoor football, for those that aren't familiar, you do not see that many walk off field goals. In fact, I think the last one that we saw was what, week two, Vegas and Arizona for that
I think
upset.
so.
So
Yeah,
you just don't see it a lot. Like in the NFL, you see it probably every what, like at least once or twice a month.
at
But
least. Yeah.
in indoor, you just don't see walk off field goals like that. So props to him. That was cool to see. And then let's see, Green Bay keeps winning. I love to
Mm-hmm.
see it. I don't think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people had them pegged to be a top four team, and I have them as of today number two in my power rankings because their wins have not just been wins, but they've been convincing wins. Like they're doing it in all aspects of the game. So good for Roberson and his crew. Max Myler still, I believe, MVP candidate for this season. And then Edwards was back for Frisco, so that's good for them. Kyle
Yep.
King is hurt, but I have it on good authority that he will be back soon. But Iowa still got the win without him last week. So
So there.
couple of notable games, notable performances from this last week. So week number 12 was Iowa over Sioux Falls 47-45. So they get their third win of the season. So they could be a team to watch as far as spoiling postseason hopes for others. I don't think they'll get in themselves, but you never know. There's still a whole, like almost half of a season left, which is ridiculous to
Yeah.
say.
Like them
Uh,
games.
Frisco over Mass 52-48. That one, those are the
Mm-hmm.
kind of matchups now that you watch. They're just like, this is going to be the difference between one of these teams getting in and one of these teams not getting in for the postseason.
Right.
Max Myler, 17 and 24, 236, three touchdowns through the air, one INT, and two touchdowns on the ground. And then
Mm-hmm.
Dalton Sneed, 14 to 20, 238, seven touchdowns through the air, one interception, and none on the ground. So, I mean, Dalton Sneed clearly a difference maker. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about Arizona because we're going to take a look at the remaining schedule for, I picked three from each conference as far as who's kind of
Mm-hmm.
on the bubble and what the rest of their schedule looks like. And me and Malk are going to kind of try to cipher through this and see if we can crack the code to who's going to get in and who's going to be left out. But Malk, what are your big moments from the last couple of weeks since we last spoke?
Well, man, it's a lot to talk about, obviously, but I think we both know what my favorite one
Oh,
is.
there it
I mean,
is.
I don't think I have to. I don't think I have to speak too much on it, but I mean, no, I mean, Duke City finally getting their much needed win. Kind of like you said earlier, I don't see them really making any noise in the postseason, but they are kind of shaping up to be a team that can potentially spoil some guys' postseason hopes, and just be that team to beat when it comes to that area. For sure, the Mavs versus Frisco. I mean, we've been talking for some time about Mavs actually having a opponent that can test their metal really,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting to see that once they come up into a real contender. I wouldn't say they folded, but I mean it just kind of goes to show you where they stand as far as the upper echelon teams. It's easy to kind of get caught up in the rankings and the records and whatnot. But realistically, would test you better than anything else is when you're playing a team that is equal caliber or better than you. I mean, I love watching that game. That was a great one. Also, my boy Nova over there in San Antonio continuing to make noise. I mean, I can't even say I'm surprised at this point. Man. I mean, it's just great players are gonna do great things. I want to say, was it week 11? I think he won Offensive Player of the week for that game. It was either 11 or 12, I forget. But yeah, man, great game. Just continuing to do what he does, leading his team to victory, and I'm definitely just hoping to see better things from San Antonio, man. I think they finally got it going, and they're really ready to make some noise in the postseason.
Yeah, they are one of the teams that we will talk about as far as looking at the remainder of their schedule. Because
Mm,
I took the two conferences and I said, okay, what are we looking at here? The West is stacked. So realistically, I wrote down three teams for each conference, but for the West, I think it's only going to be one spot up for grabs. And
yeah.
then for the East, though, it's probably going to be two spots that are up for grabs for at least three teams. Because if you just look, it's weird because both conferences, they go and then they have teams with like really good winning records, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it just stops, and then it's like losing records, right? I
Hmm.
think for the West, it's Arizona and then San Diego are the closest to 500 of any other team in the entire league. Where the East, it has like, Green Bay and
Hmm.
Frisco, and then there's Quad City at 4 and 6 or 4 and 5, and then the rest are like 3 and 7. So
Yeah.
that's why I say the East is probably going to have a mad dash for the last two spots from there, and then the West is probably only going to have one up for grabs. But it could be interesting how they get to that one spot. If I recall correctly, how the playoffs are done, and I think it's the top four from both conferences. So
Oh yeah.
may
Yeah.
double check that, but yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I thought about if we were going to do a put it to bed because it's a new month, but I was like, was there anything that we really like got into last month that we needed to put to bed? So for comedic reasons, I figured Harrison Butker. I'd just like that to be put to bed
Yeah.
because it's like the guy doesn't know how to read a room. We've established that. His choice of words, given his
uh,
audience, were not great. That was poor choice there as well. But
yeah.
I mean, like, it's not like the dude said, "Yeah, you guys all just spent the last 4 years and will be up to your eyeballs in debt to go on and hopefully pursue careers." But in the end of the day, it's like get back to the kitchen. Like it's not. He didn't say that, right? Like it was
uh,
a lot more delicate. But I could understand that, man. If you can't read a room, like I don't know what to tell you because that was bad. So
yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of poking fun, which is fair.
Mm,
It's fair game, but the overreaction, I think it was a bit much. It just, but that's just me. I'm not a woman. I'm not going to claim to be in that world. I know that there's a lot of hot button topics and
mm,
trigger words that they go through. So, but that's just me. I just think like, okay, let's move on. He made a speech. We made fun of him for it. Let's move on.
mm.
So that would be the one thing that I would want to put to bed. We didn't even talk about it, but I feel like somewhere over the last 2 weeks, we probably would have talked. It would have been like a bad or funny for one of
I can
us.
imagine. I can imagine. I can definitely imagine. Man, I mean, I think we found the one guy who's actually hated more than you, Rich. I mean,
Oh,
it's
jeez. Oh,
no,
jeez.
man. Like you said, especially like in a when you have a large platform and you're a pretty constant public speaker, and you would think that you have the I guess the foresight and the training to not ruffle too many feathers, But like you said, Bucker, he's just one of those guys who doesn't seem. I'm not gonna say he doesn't care, but I think it just kind of comes down to like you said. He need his social skills could use a tune up, man. Reading a room is a pivotal skill, So I mean, if you can't do it, you're gonna find yourself on the tail end of a lot of negativity.
Well, and obviously, like I didn't have a whole lot of time in Florida to do anything to catch up on anything. Just like I figured, like my itinerary was so stacked. I was like, God, I'm glad I told Malcolm we'd take the week off because there's just no way. But then the COVID week,
Mhm.
people were sending me links to stuff like, "Did you see this? And did you hear about this?" or blah blah blah. And it's just like, no. Like when it comes to like the other outlets, like I don't watch their stuff because
Yeah.
there's. I don't feel like I'm going to learn anything from them. And when
Mhm.
you are in an industry like media, you only watch the competition for one of two reasons. Either you feel like you could learn something from them, or they actually do something that entertains you, or you feel that they have an informative outlook on something. But when it comes to the
Yeah.
world of indoor football, like there's very few that do it well, and we're one of them. Obviously, we've had players and coaches
Hey,
tell us that this is the only place that they'll come and talk
take notes, guys.
on this kind of platform. But it's like I look around and there's what the shady sports and it's like
Mhm.
okay, so there's like a bunch of people that work for that network, I guess, but it's a bunch of talking heads in a box. There's no production value. Like there's no
Yeah.
anything. It's just like a really poorly done product. And then inside the walls, they do stuff for the NAL. Well, I guess technically the Sharks and Gunslingers, but that's like a grandfathered plan, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and their whole thing is like brand above all, but it's like the NAL is not a brand to be above all. So if that's your
Not even
bread and
close.
butter, oof, okay, that's a little rough. And then you've got the guy that thinks he knows everything about my personal life and how I spend my free time. And who can compete with him? I mean, really. I mean, he's just like shitty graphics and no content whatsoever. I mean, that's the pinnacle right there. But I just look around and there's just not a lot that I can be like, okay, yeah, I see what they're doing over there. Or be like, oh,
Hmm.
man, that's something new. It's just not. People that think that you need to be first when you just need to be right. And I remember back in 2020, actually, you know, there was all the stuff. Once COVID canceled the season officially, you had all these moving parts.
Yeah.
And inside the arena reported that the IFL was going around to NAL teams telling them that the NAL was going to fold and to join them. And so I'm just like, okay, who's their source on this? And of course, they didn't name one. So at that time, I was actually on decent terms with the commissioner, Todd Tryon. So I texted him and I said, hey, did you see this? Yeah, I saw it. Well, no, it's completely false. Okay, care to comment? And he gave me a comment. It took me 15 minutes to get a
Mm.
statement from the IFL commissioner saying that report is not true at all. And so I called
Yeah.
them out and they had to issue a retraction. And I'm laughing so hard because I was just like, you cannot do this job and not double, triple, quadruple check things. You just can't.
Mm.
And if you're not talking to people like the commissioners, I don't know what you're doing in this game because it's just poor journalism at that point. So yeah, when people send
Mm.
me links to stuff or they ask if I saw this, chances are I didn't because
Yeah.
there's just nothing of value
Mm.
in it for me. So
Mm.
that's you know, I relaxed. That's how I spent the COVID week. We started binge
Yeah.
watching CSI. So that's our little recap and catch up brought to you by F3 Energy. Yeah, Malcolm, while you were not making content and videos, I was trying to get sponsorships. So we're gonna see.
Yeah.
Mm,
What
okay,
you
that's
think,
actually
man?
pretty good.
Yeah.
That's one of three flavors. They sent me two cases. So
Oh man.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
F3 Energy. I don't know what their little catchphrase or anything is, so we'll just be like F3 Energy. Fuck yeah.
Make sure you edit the fire around the can and everything too. It just seems like it just fits, you know.
All right. So, since normally this is the point of the episode that we recap the last week, we've got 2 weeks to catch up on, but we're going to do
Mm.
things a little differently. So, we're actually going to break down the standings and teams that are on the bubble and the rest of their schedule and see who is going to get in and who might be left on the outside looking in. So, let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. Here are your teams. So let's go ahead and look at the West. So the three teams, because let's be real, it's probably going to be one spot up for grabs, really, with just how stacked the West is. So I put down San Diego 6-4, Arizona 6-4, and then San Antonio 4-5. And then the
Okay.
East, there's probably going to be two spots up for grabs, but it's going to be a mad dash. We've got Massachusetts at 6-4, Quad City 4-5, and Tulsa 3-7. Now Iowa is 3-7 as well, but I just I can't, you know, like with I just can't give them the vote of confidence to be like, you know, hey, you guys could be in the postseason picture. And I'm not saying that Tulsa is head and shoulders better, but I think once we go over their remaining schedules, you'll kind of see why they're in the mix. So with San Diego, their last games of the remaining season are home against Arizona, then
Mm.
three road games, and they are Bay Area, Tucson, Northern Arizona. Then they come home to take on Vegas. They have a bye, and then they close it out at home against Bay Area. The combined
Mm.
record for those opponents 30-17, and they only play one team twice once. So all of them are conference. So these are all the games that mean something. So 30 and 17, that's a pretty rough uphill battle as far as a team that's sitting at 6-4 looking for one of the last possible playoff spots. Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
their last stretch here, they are on the road against San Diego. Then they're at home against Naz, on the road against Vegas, and then they're home twice for Iowa and Tucson. They have a bye, and then they close out their season on the road against San Antonio. Combined
Mm-hmm.
record for their opponents 29 and 28. They do not play anyone twice, and they are all but one are in conference. So again, that's a pretty good stretch for another team that's right in the mix. San Antonio, DC at home, and then at
Mm-hmm.
Mass and at Northern Arizona. Then they host Frisco, they host Mass, then they're at Tucson, and then they close out their season at home against Arizona. 30 and 28 combined record for those teams. They play one team twice, that's Mass, and all but two of their games are in conference. So the West, Malcolm, if you go by the strength of opponent, obviously Arizona has a bit of an edge there. But fun fact about Tucson and fun fact about Arizona is with Tucson, this is the worst record Billy Back has ever had as a head coach, and all but
Mm.
one of their games have been decided by one score. And for Arizona, they're terrible in the fourth quarter. They have had of their whole season so far, 5 of their 10 games have been decided by one score.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, the last few games that they've had have been their best in the fourth quarter, but they've only outscored their opponent once and they lost that game. So
Mm-hmm.
they've got the easiest stretch by strength of opponent, sure, and that's to be interpreted. Well, actually, I think well for the West, for the East, there's one that's got them beat as far as easiest strength of opponent. But you're looking at one spot maybe for the West. Arizona could do it, but will they? So I got to say, San Antonio and San Diego. There's a couple of games. If San Antonio can beat Mass twice, then all they've got to
Yeah.
worry about is Tucson, Frisco, and Arizona because they're up against DC coming up, which may
Mm.
not be as easy of a win as we once thought previously. And then
Hey.
San Diego, dude, that's a gauntlet. Okay, when you've got Arizona, Bay Area, Naz, Vegas, Bay Area again. So
Man.
your initial thoughts, knee jerk reaction when you see these three remaining schedules.
See, I mean, obviously, like you said, the most recent one is a gauntlet, man. I mean, anytime you're playing Bay Area twice, I mean, you just got to cross your fingers with that. I've said before, it's hard to beat any team twice, especially one that's a reigning league defender. All the time they got over there is going to be a tough one for those guys. So I mean, it's on the three schedules you've named are very very challenging. But I mean, for myself, I hate to give such a around the world answer, but I mean, I can't even say honestly. It's too much for one person to make a call on in this case. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, like I said, and I need to correct something that I said. So Arizona has outscored their opponents in the fourth quarter 3 times, but twice was Jax, and they seem
Oh
to
yeah.
just beat the snot out of Jacksonville in the second half. Like it's not even funny. But like I said, the opponent that was not Jax that they outscored in the second half, they still lost that game. So it's like I'm looking at this team, even with Snead back, it's like how do you let yourself keep the opponent in it and get beat in the fourth quarter and leave it at such a close game? It's just like these you can't have that kind of behavior at this point in the season. You just can't. So
No, you're
I'm
right.
looking
You're
at
right.
them, San Diego. If they're going to be the ones to get that fourth spot, and granted, Naz could completely crumble and fall apart because they're technically third in that, but they play all three of these teams, so they could have just
Mm,
a horrible stretch. Not taking anything away, but for argument's sake, we went with the three that are kind of on the bubble looking for that last spot. So
right.
San Diego, if they get it, they're going to have earned the shit out of it, right? Like that is a
That's
remaining
true.
schedule where it's like you don't want to play that team if they manage to get in the postseason. But looking at
Mm,
Arizona, and I just see SD and Naz. I think for all three of them, it comes down to the next 3 games. So San Diego, Arizona, Bay Area. Tucson. They'll probably win at least one or two of those games. You know,
I
Tucson
can
and
see it.
maybe Arizona. I don't know about Bay Area.
Yeah,
Arizona,
yeah, for sure.
Arizona on the flip side, then SD, Naz, and Vegas. If they don't win any of those, or if they only win one, they still have like such a tough rest of the like the rest of the schedule is easier, but it's like
Mm,
these are wins that you're going to need because these are teams that you're probably going to play in the postseason. Um,
exactly.
so San Antonio, DC, Mass, and Naz, home, road, road. I think if they can get those three wins, then they've got it. Like I really think that San Antonio is of the three the most dangerous team right now, and they've got the schedule that's not the easiest, but I just think that their opponents, these are teams that they can beat.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And I don't disagree with that entirely. I would say, as far as the most dangerous team, I would have to go with San Diego, though. Because, I mean, we've seen what they can do with their full roster. We've seen what they can do with bits and pieces, because of that incident a few weeks back. They were forced to have to play with, some secondary guys, and still a pretty formidable team. So, I think San Diego, out of the three teams named, certainly have the weapons and veteran leadership to come out on top. So
Of the four big games San Diego has, Bay Area twice, Naz, and Vegas, I think they got to get at least half of those. They got to get two of them in order to
yeah,
be
so
in the picture. They've got a winning record now, and
yeah,
I think two more. I think 8 wins puts you in a comfortable spot. So for
hmm
these three, it's the first to 8 or 9 wins. I think, however that comes, and I think San Antonio's got the edge. So that'll be fun to watch. Malcolm's leaning
yeah,
SD. I'm leaning San Antonio. So for the
for sure.
East, this one's going to be a lot more fun. We got Mass at 6-4, Quad City 4-5, Tulsa 3-7. So for Mass, they are at home against Green Bay and San Antonio.
mm,
Then they are on the road against Jax. They're back home against Quad City, who has beat them. Then they're at San Antonio, a bye, and then they close it out at Tulsa. The combined record of their opponents, 19-27. I told you somebody had
okay.
Arizona beat. Like they play one team twice, and all but
uh,
two are conference. So that's the easiest schedule of any team looking for a playoff spot as you're going to get. Quad City,
yeah.
they're at home against Frisco. They're at Iowa, home against Green Bay. They're at Mass, home against Sioux Falls. And then they finish out with back to back road games against Tulsa and Jax. And then Tulsa is at Jacksonville, home against Sioux Falls, at Iowa, home against Green Bay. Then they have a bye. And then their last two games are at home against QC and Mass. For Quad City, it's 31-37 combined record for opponents. And for
Mm,
Tulsa, 24-33. So the whole Eastern Conference technically has a nice, easy strength of schedule for the remaining opponents as far as more losses than wins.
mm-hmm.
QC and Tulsa do not play any teams twice, and they are all in conference. So they've got technically the toughest road just based on that information alone. But Mass, man, we've talked about it. Like you got to go and play Green Bay, who the last time you played was week 1, and they are a
Yeah,
much different team now.
much
And then you're
different,
going to have to
much different.
play the Gunslingers. Jax, God, I wish we had more faith in them at this point in the season. I really do.
For
But
sure.
then QC, San Antonio again, and then you close it out against Tulsa. So it's the easiest one, but like I see 3 wins in there for them. And Quad City, dude, like I don't even know how to predict what the outcomes are going to be for this, just like for Tulsa. So probably one spot up for grabs right now. Mass has it, but
Mm,
Quad City, um, Frisco, and Iowa, Green Bay, I think they've got probably way too tough of a schedule. They need to have some of these last games first up, like Sioux Falls, Tulsa, and Jax. They need to have those instead of Frisco, Iowa, and Green Bay because I don't think Iowa is going to be an easy win for them at all because that's a rivalry game. And then
yeah.
Tulsa, man, they lost to Jax. That's Jack's 1 win of the season.
Hmm.
And so you look at the rest, and it's just like, wow. So eh, like Mass gets it by default, I guess. Just feels like it, right?
It does. It certainly does, man. guess this is just one of those situations, like you said, they don't have any control over it necessarily, but the teams line up in front of them are they just have the odds are in their favor in this case. It's hard to see either of the three teams, well, either Quad City or Tulsa coming out with their strength of schedule versus Mass. Like you said, I mean, they can certainly pull out 3 wins from these last games. Um, Green Bay is going to be a great one. That's the one to watch, in my opinion. Jack's kind of a no brainer, in my opinion. Uh, Quad City, that may be pretty entertaining to watch. I mean, because Quad City definitely has a lot on the line at the moment. But Tulsa, I'm not sure if they can stand up with Mass at this point. So I mean, we'll see. We'll definitely see. But I mean, it's I think for as far as who's going to take that spot in the East, I mean, it's pretty clear.
Well, so the thing about the East is that it's Green Bay and Frisco right now, are the 1 and 2, and then Mass is
Yeah.
technically 3. Quad City's technically the 4th spot, and then Tulsa, Iowa, and the rest of them fall into place. So
Okay.
Mass, I
So
think, by default gets the 3rd because they've just
yeah.
got too good of a schedule and they're 2 games ahead, and I don't see them losing a 2-game lead to any of the other teams. For
Yeah.
Quad City, though, it will come down to how Tulsa does on the road 2 of their next 3 games, Jackson, Iowa,
Mm,
because Sioux Falls, that's a wild card, but Iowa and Jacks are both going to be tough road environments for Tulsa. And there's games that we thought for sure they should have won and they've lost. So I think Quad City is in a good spot, but man, if they get a playoff spot, it's like every team that's in the playoffs for that side is going to want to play them because it's
yeah.
like it had to be somebody, right? And I feel bad for QC, but I really hope that they crank it up and turn it on this home stretch. So Mass and QC probably, but Tulsa does have a shot. So
Mm,
that's our fun little way of kind of recapping and getting us ready for the rest of the season. 2 weeks is just too many games to try to get around as far as recapping it in a timely manner. But I think this was something different that Malcolm and I liked. I did all the math here, broke this thing down, and then we took a close look at Arizona because I really think that that is the one team that you just don't know. It's going to
mm,
be in every single game, and it might come down to that last week against San Antonio as far as who gets, that 4th spot if San Diego hasn't locked it up already. So all right, folks, it's the portion of our program now where we welcome a special guest, but this one's not just special. He's like the most interesting man in indoor football. He is the kicker for
mm.
the Duke City Gladiators, winless no more, Ernesto Lacayo. Welcome, my man. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey, any chance we get to chalk it up with the kicker, we love to because you guys are seriously like everyone's favorite and most hated person all in the same moment. I
Mm,
know you feel that. And
Oh, absolutely every day.
so you guys now took a while, took a bit.
Mhm.
12 weeks into the season, but now you guys are in the win column. You guys have your man at quarterback, who Malcolm has been gushing about ever since he got his first start. Malcolm is even in his Duke City Gladiators
See that?
swag and
come on now.
apparel.
Come on
So
now.
he is super
That's a big.
excited about this. So I'll ask the first question, then we'll hand it off to Malcolm. So I think the obvious one is, how's it feel?
It feels good to get that first win in the call. I think we've been in really, really close games all throughout the season, with the exception of one. And so, we're not necessarily what you considered a bad team. I've been on pretty bad teams throughout my career. This one is seemed to be the one. It's just one of those ways where the football gods don't want it to go your way in the moment. So, just being able to put everything together in the second half, because it was a literally a tale of two halves. Scoreless in
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
first quarter, and we
Yeah.
scored one in the second. And there you go, we win the game.
Wow. All right, Malk,
That's
he's
cool,
all
man.
yours.
That's cool, man. Ernesto Lacayo, the most interesting man in the world. What's going on, man?
It's good, man. It's good. Just blood
Hey,
year 13.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I gotta say, man, I played against you, and I've watched you for some time, man. You're great at what you do, man. So, I mean, congratulations on the longevity of your career and just doing it at such a high level for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it's always one of those things where even when I was younger, watching some of the greats before me. It's like you admire what they do and what makes them tick and work, and then you try to implement that into your craft and your dream, and you make it work.
Yeah, man. Well, it's definitely working for you, man. So keep doing what you're doing,
I
definitely.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Um, yeah, man. So I mean, one thing you said before, and this was a question that I had immediately when I saw that, you were our guest. It was a tale of two halves for sure, man. I mean, like it's I've been on both ends
Yeah.
of the spectrum. What exactly goes through your mind coming out uh the following half when you guys are scoreless? I mean, I know the goal is always the win, but without saying too much, I know you can't speak on what was said in the locker room, but
Sure.
what exactly was the motive?
I mean, I would say mainly because, me as a kicker, I'm in there about a good 2 minutes and I get right back out there just to get some
Yeah,
water. But I'm in there enough to hear what's going on. But when you are down and scoreless in the first half, your mindset has to be, you got to finish. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, and you got to make
for
sure that
sure.
whatever you're doing, if it's not working, you go to your plan B and stuff like that.
Mm,
And if you see things and in the coverages and the defenses and what's working and what's not working, you got to make sure you got to dig deep into yourself and make those adjustments and just really just tell yourself 0-0 and just finish the game. Because whether you're playing quarterback to kicker to offensive line to defensive line, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, and you want to lay everything out there, and things
yeah,
got to go away, and you got to capitalize on the momentums and those moments in football where you're like, you know what, we got to really get things going in this moment. You got to take advantage of that.
I hear that, man. I hear that. That's cool that you say that too, because I mean, you never, as a football team altogether, you always need to have that never say die mentality. But I mean, coming from a former team I played on, I'm glad to hear that. That's the case over there. Um, I also wanted to ask you, man. So, and I've been saying this since college. Outside of the quarterback on the team, I want to say the place kickers are definitely the most cocky motherfuckers on the team, man. So, no, I mean,
Wow.
because you guys are great. I mean, you do what you do great, and then on top of that, a lot of kickers are multi-dimensional. You can play other positions if need be. It just so happens that you're the best kicker on the team. So I noticed that you are one of few place kickers that actually do the drop kick, man. So like what exactly goes into do you feel like is that like a coach's call or is that something that you kind of use your own discretion? Like, you feel like I can do this, so I'm gonna go for it.
Well, I'll be quite honest. So when we played against Frisco about a month or two back, we had never practiced the drop kick. I had been doing
Yeah.
it in the off season, and for warm ups, just messing around. I know how to drop kick because my uncle was a goalie back in the '70s, and they used to drop kick the soccer ball for goal
Yeah.
kicks. So he would
Right,
teach me.
right, right.
And so before the game, I was just messing around, and our coach is like, "Hey, can you do that often?" I'm like, "I mean, yeah, but we never practiced it." So we're going to that game. We go into that game. We score the first touchdown. I'm going in there mentally as an extra point. Coach is like, "We're gonna go for two." So I started walking back. He's like, "No, I want drop kick for two." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay." So I'm like, "Well, we need an extra guy." What do you mean an extra? It's like a mini punt. We got to take away the holder. So I'm directing a lot in this situation. And to be honest, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, you're confident in what you can do, but that ball bounces funny the moment it hits the
Yeah,
ground. 'Cause it has to hit the ground, and an oblong shaped ball wants to go somewhere else as opposed to straight up and down.
exactly.
You just want to make sure you make good contact and you come through when you can. But I think after that game, when I went 5 for 5 and kept us in the game against Frisco, you give a kid candy, they want to see more of it, and
Yeah.
it's not a it's not a very sustainable. I only got 3 more drop kicks to do successfully in order to break the league record,
Oh
like the
man.
league record. But again, not as easy.
I've been paying attention to the transaction records there in Duke City, and I mean, you're one of the few veterans, who's been there from the start. And I've seen a lot of talent come and go.
Sure.
How exactly does as a veteran yourself, and you had that veteran leadership, how do you attempt to keep the team together? I mean, because like I said, I've seen players come and go on teams I've been on, And it's kind of hard to uphold that chemistry when you got a new guy every week or every other week. So I mean, what exactly do you do to kind of keep it together?
Especially for the younger guys. If anything I've learned throughout my career, and even when I was in the XFL, and the XFL in 2020 was as its most brutal because I saw guys get cut daily. So I stopped having
Mm,
breath guys because
man,
like, well, I was gonna go talk to this guy and he's not there anymore.
yeah,
Same, same thing with arena, and it happens probably at a less frequency, but for the younger guys not understanding, the business, and I emphasize business. It's nothing personal, it's business. And
yeah,
I tell the younger guy, it's production, it's
mm,
consistency, and it's sustainability. So as long as you're doing what you need to do on and off the field, you don't need to worry about it. And if you are like traded and things like that, it's just a business at the end of the day. Sometimes a fresh new start, and you just got to look at it that way. Because when I was younger, like, oh, that was a good friend of mine. Oh, now he's gone, and it changes your demeanor. And you got to remember the reason why you're there is to perform and to win and to put
oh
on a
yeah,
good show for fans.
Oh, that was good stuff, Malk. Mine was going to be my first question for Ernesto. One of the things that I admire the most about you is that, when I look at you and your career and your craft, I'm reminded a lot of how I kind of go through my industry, my career, and my craft, which is our attention to the detail of the craft within the craft. It's not just about making field goals for you. It's about the technique. It's about always, having your best swing when it comes to your foot. For me, it's not about just making deadline. It's putting together the best cuts, the best, shots and everything like that. So when you know, this is your 13th season, and obviously
mm,
we're competitive. You're on a football team. It's going to be competitive all week, every game. But, Malcolm and we talked about that kick that wasn't to win. It was just to tie and you missed, and it's such an
Oh,
uncharacteristic miss for you, right? And so we're like, he's got to be devastated. And then of course you come back and you do the same thing next week and you just keep going about it, week after week. How do you maintain a certain mental toughness, especially knowing that there's younger guys on the team? They may not be kickers, they may not be your backup, but you're just trying to show them that even when times are tough, like you've got to keep your head
sure.
up because there's still another
mm,
game next week.
I mean, the best way I go about it is simply you're only as good as your next kick, or you're only as good as your next play. And so once a play is over, whether it was a successful kick or not, you gotta be like a mindset of a goldfish, 10 seconds and it's gone. And you gotta make sure that if it's the end of the game, you got 24 hours to look about your technique, what you could have done better on the adjustment of the ball, and you move on to the next one. And I think when younger guys are watching older guys work, that's the most important thing. It doesn't phase them. It doesn't mean it's not important to them, because if it's not important to you, then you don't really care and you don't respect the craft itself.
yeah,
That being said, you look at a guy and you're like, wow, he just keeps going back to work. Got to clock back in. It's a new week, new adjustments, new way to approach the game. Because in the kicking world, I think what younger guys, especially in the arena, what they need to learn is that every week, not only are you getting ready for your opponent, but you're helping your return teams and your field goal blocks and the tendencies that the opposite kicker does, whether he makes or misses, in his demeanor and how he steps. You show them. So when they get to that game, they're like, oh, I see what he just did, and things like that. So I approach it that way. Whereas, like, you know what? That was last week's game. Let's move on to the next one. Here's what I've seen on this guy. Now let's get ready for this.
Well, and you're not only a spot on a roster, but you're a veteran spot on a roster, which a lot of people
Yeah.
may not know. That's like its own allotted, members of the roster. And so I have seen entire seasons of indoor football basically treat their roster like it's a fantasy draft where you get through the whole thing and you're just like, wait, did we get a kicker? Do we need one right now? Like we can stream a kicker, right? Like we can do a different guy every week. And it's just like, wow. So for you being not only a spot on the roster, but a veteran spot, going into your 10th, 11th, 12th, now 13th season, are
Mhm.
you having extensive conversations with these coaches before you sign on? Because I have to, I mean, you've got to be one top three kicker in the league and
Mhm.
probably have been for a while, but also like
easily.
you're not going to be a guy that's just going to be a spot filler or a placeholder. Like you've got to like I assume that you're at the point where you want to go somewhere and be there for the long haul pending an injury.
This is might be the most amount of rookie kickers I've seen in a season in the league since about close to my rookie year in 2011.
Mm,
And with that being said, it sucks to see, but the average lifetime span for a kicker, it went up from 3 games to 4 games. So there's been so much like change and turnover. There's only, I believe, 4 of us left in the season on the league right now that are with our respective teams. Everyone else has
mm,
gone 4+ kickers already and changing around.
Wow.
As far as veteran kickers, with the side of TC Stevens in San Antonio, who's also a year 13, even though he's older than me, we're the only old cats still around when it
mm.
30+ year old kickers. And where we're having to, battle it out with these young legs, some great talents, don't get me wrong. But like a lot of these teams are definitely looking at us as far as our age, because not only is are you considered a veteran for a certain amount of years, now if you're 28 years old after January 1st, you're considered a veteran.
Mm.
So like you have never played one game and you're still considered a veteran. So it's hurting a lot of guys who I know who are free agents, who are those 28 years old or older, trying to make their way in there. And teams are just not, oh, I'm not going to really waste a spot for an unproven kicker. So you got to really make sure that you're proving yourself year by year and extending that leash a little bit so you can be considered for a team. Because as we know in this league, when it comes down to points, whether it's that extra point, field goal, deuce, drop kicks, multiple ways of scoring, it comes down to a lot of these kickers, which just happened this last game. Rookie kicker missed an extra point. I made mine, win the game.
I got to ask, because it doesn't happen very often in the world of indoor football, what did you think of Kaplan's walk-off a couple weeks ago in Quad City?
Mm.
Me and Kaplan trained together for many years when I was living in a van down by the river in college. We used to train with John Carney and stuff, and he learned a lot from me as well. And he was also my backup kicker for the Rattlers in 22 when I had a
Mm.
great CL tear. And just seeing guys like him, because it's an unconventional way of he kicks. He kicks the ball like a punch. It's very soft,
Mm.
but he's got a lot of power. He's got a great core strength. And I was like, when I saw him had that game, I actually called him. I was like, you had a legendary game. Remember that. And all of us have those kind of games, but it's one of those nights where you get hot and everything, you get lucky and it happens. But it was really good to see him because, he's been trying to establish himself in this league. And I'm glad he was able to find a home in Quad City.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, kickers need love too. It's a hashtag I started several years ago. Ernesto's part of the movement, and not only is he one of the most interesting men in the world, he's also one of the most generous. That Seattle Dragons ball
Oh, there it
signed
is.
by the man himself, that's like a collector's item now, not just because of the logo change, but they're not even in the league anymore. So hey, if you ever find any more Dragon stuff you don't want, you can send it my way. I'm collecting stuff all the time, but that ball to be signed by you and have that connection because that was my home team, right? Seattle, Washington. That was too cool, man. So you are truly one of the greats, not only as an athlete, as a kicker, but also as a person. So we thank you so much for your time, man.
Always fun talking with you guys, indoor football and everything else, guys. I appreciate you guys.
For
All
sure,
right,
man.
one more time for the most interesting man in indoor football, kicker for the no longer winless Duke City Gladiators. Could spell trouble for some teams down the stretch. He is Ernesto Lacayo. Thanks again, man. We'll talk to you soon. All right, and one more big thank you to Ernesto Lacayo for giving us some of his time here, and that brings us to our Pick'em segment. It's been a while, and now we get into another big week for a lot of teams, as we just discussed. Some more important than others, but Malcolm and I are going to make our Pick'em now, starting with a Saturday. No Friday games this time. And if you're wondering, yes, I did win the last Pick Your Punishment. Came down to the last game.
No
And
reverse.
Malcolm, I had to pivot because he still hasn't given me my gym hype video yet. So we decided to do something quick and easy, not necessarily
Yeah.
painless, a pie to the face. It was Malcolm's turn. So we'll put that up on the social and you guys can enjoy some of that humiliation to start your summer off with in the right way. So
Sure.
Green Bay at Mass. So already we've got a game that Mass needs this way more than Green Bay, but Green Bay, dude,
Mm.
I think that their foot is fully on the gas right now. So I'm going to go with Green Bay on the road in what could be an epic revenge game, if you want to call it that, from that week 1 loss, because it seems like ever since that week 1 loss to Mass, Green Bay has just been a different beast. Max Myler
Yeah.
in the MVP conversation, or at least should be. Their whole defense is just, man, that is a nasty defense, both front three and the secondary. So they're doing it. Green Bay in 2024, man, they are doing it. This is a team to watch. So I like Green Bay on the road against the Mass Pirates, looking for, that third, hopefully one of two playoff spots for the Eastern
Mm.
Conference. Malk, what about you?
I like Green Bay too, Rich. I mean, and this is exactly where you want to be at this point in the season. You know, like you said, they lost to Mass earlier in the season, had some hiccups, had a little trouble, but you always want to catch fire and be playing your best football towards the tail end of the season. So I think they're in the perfect spot. They I mean, it just doesn't get any better for them at this point. So I'm taking Green Bay as well. I think they'll take it home.
The next Saturday game is the Tulsa Oilers, who are in the discussion, crazy as it is, at 3-7 as far as what could be the last playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. And they'll take on
Hmm.
the Jacksonville Sharks, who, man, we thought they had it after that first win. We really did. And it just didn't work out for them. But they're going to probably be in spoiler mode. I don't know if that starts this week. I think Tulsa clearly needs the win more than they do. So,
Hmm.
road, hostile environment. I mean, we've talked up Jones and just his teams before, but it's it's just been a different year for them. But I'm still going to go with Tulsa. I think they need the win, they get the win, and that's just how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm a go out on a limb here and go with Jax in this case, Rich. you know, but no, I mean, I think Tulsa certainly does need to win here to stay at least in the playoff talk. But Jacksonville knows that, and they may not be in contention anymore. I don't think. I mean, according to the math and whatnot, but they still have some competitors over there who are willing to, like you said, be that spoiler for some guys. And I know that they're more than capable of doing so. I'm taking Jax on this.
Okay. So we got one difference of opinion there. First of
Yeah,
who knows, probably many.
we'll see.
So that brings us to the next one, which is Duke City. We just talked to Ernesto Lacayo, and then the San Antonio Gunslingers. And I feel like Malcolm and I are going to be difference of opinion on this one, but I
Mm.
went first the last two, didn't even realize it. So, Malk, you're up. Who do you like in this one?
In this case, man, as much as I would love to say my Duke City Gladiators, man, I gotta go with my gut feeling on this. San Antonio, I think this gonna be a pretty one-sided game for them.
I like San Antonio as well. I'm going to
Hmm.
go ahead and put this on this game, and that is that, I said San Antonio needs to win their first three as far as these next three games in order to
Right.
probably have momentum on their side to get that last playoff spot for the West. But this game, like if they lose this game, I don't think they'll get it because this is one of those games where one, it's a game that you should win.
Hmm.
But, Duke City is clearly in the position to start playing spoiler, just like Jax and probably Sioux Falls. San Antonio doesn't get this one. I don't have confidence that they'll get that last playoff spot. So we both like San Antonio. That brings us to another very important matchup: the Frisco Fighters on the road against the Quad City Steamwheelers. This
Ooh, okay.
one, yeah, Quad City needs real bad. Frisco, they don't, but it's not the point in the season where you can just kind of hit cruise control and kind of take a back seat to your games. But TJ Edwards is back. So, Malk,
Mhm.
I feel like this one's pretty obvious, but you first.
Oh, for sure, definitely obvious. I'm not gonna sit there and act like it's not. Um, I'm taking Frisco.
And I'm going to take Frisco as well, not because I you know, don't believe in Quad City, but again, apparently we've been called out for not picking Frisco enough, and the last few times I picked Frisco, they lost. So might as well just keep that trend going. See if they enjoyed the break from us
uh,
doing pick 'em the last couple of weeks. All right, so we both like Frisco. The next game, Vegas in Sioux Falls. This is an intriguing matchup. Um,
You think so?
well, I think Sioux Falls really should have won that game against Iowa, but
Hmm.
man, they're just a team that will play you all 4 quarters. They will go 60
Yeah,
minutes with you. And Vegas, I think, has lost what, two of their last four now? Ever since
yeah.
they were the last undefeated team, and that ended. Yeah, it's either two of the last three or four, I think.
Hmm.
So they really need this one. And what is a Vegas team like when they're on their heels, more or less, especially on the road? So
Hmm.
I'm still going to go with Vegas. I think they're an opponent that probably learns pretty quick from their mistakes, and they know how heated that race is in the West. If they want to be one of the top two seeds, they got to keep pace with Bay Area. Unfortunately, at this point in the season, they have to hope Bay Area loses again. In
Yeah,
order to do the tiebreaker with their win over them. But man, it just takes one game, right? You slip up, and now all of a sudden you're hoping another team screws up. It's like you should take care of your business. So I
for
think they will
sure.
take care of their business against Sioux Falls. Vegas gets the win.
I like it. I like it for sure. And I'm taking Vegas as well. Simply because, like you said, they're in a point now where not they're not the only ones who control their fate. I mean, that's not a good place to be as a team, especially when you're trying to, have the home field advantage come playoff time.
Yeah, that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves in sports, and I'm very open about this, is when
Yeah.
people become fans of teams playing other teams, right? Like, okay, so I'm a 49ers fan. If a team is playing Dallas, sure, I'll be a fan of the team playing them just because like that's the rivalry, right? But when it comes
Yeah.
to, well, if this team beats Dallas, then San Francisco gets the number 2 seed instead of the five. Then it's like, okay, like I can hope that they lose, but I'm not gonna all of a sudden, become an
Hmm.
Eagles fan. Just like I'm just not, because like we should have handled our business and not left
Hmm.
it to the fate of another team to lose. Like it drives me nuts. Like I can't stand
Yeah.
it. you
You're
know,
not the only one.
see the
For
Facebook
sure.
post. Oh man, I guess I'm a Rams fan this weekend. It's like, dude, get the hell out of here. Like nobody likes you, seriously. So yeah,
Oh man.
we agree not only on who's going to win, but also on that aspect of things. So the next game, this one is the tone setter for this week and for this remaining stretch, especially for the Western Conference. The Arizona
Mm.
Rattlers in San Diego to take on the Strike Force. It's your turn to pick, but Malcolm, you already know who I'm going to pick on this one. So, how much do you believe in either one of these teams right now?
Oh man. No, I would definitely be lying if I didn't say I know exactly who you're gonna pick. I think I'm gonna agree with you honestly and take San Diego for sure. But San Diego just has it all together, man. Like I said, we've seen them play uh, with almost half their starters, and we've seen them play with the full team. It's almost no drop off from their first team to their second teams, even their threes. So I mean, that's what you want from a team, to have that quality of play not drop as you go deeper into the depth chart. I mean, they got the recipe over there, man, San Diego, and of course led by Nate Davis. This guy habitually throws 7, 8 touchdowns a game, man. Like, what can you ask for from a quarterback? So I mean, yeah, no, I think they're gonna take it home for sure. So I'm gonna circle that one too. I definitely got to be front and center watching that one.
Yeah, I like San Diego too. Like I said, Arizona, man, that is just such a enigma of a team at this point in the season to have 5 of your 10 games be decided by one score, to get
Hmm.
outscored in the fourth quarter by all but 3 games, and then to lose one of those games as well is just such a crazy stat to me.
Yeah.
So they don't have a gauntlet like San Diego does, but I think that this, like I said, is the tone setter, and I think San Diego gets it. They're lucky to be at home, that's for sure. San Diego is, but it's going to be probably the game of the week and what sets up the rest of the season in that Western Conference. So, our Week 13 finale is the Tucson Sugar Skulls and the Bay Area Panthers, and it looks like Malcolm and I might be back to our old ways of just differing on one game. Malcolm can't afford to to have any more punishments. God forbid there's a three-peat or something.
Oh my God.
So I'm gonna go Bay Area. I mean, yeah, Tucson could win. I do feel for the Sugar Skulls. Obviously, we both know people on that team, both the players and some of the front office. I feel for them. This is so uncharacteristic of a Billy back team, and to hear that it's not just one thing, but it's several things. I hope it gets
Mm,
better for them. I really do. But Bay Area, I mean, they'd have to really just like coast at this point in order to get knocked out of their number one seed or their number one spot. And I just don't see that from a team that is the reigning champ with Rob Keefe and Dixie Wooten at the helm. This is a team that really all gas, no brakes. So
mm,
I'm going Bay Area.
for sure, for sure. You know what, Rich? I'm gonna shake it up a little bit, man. I think I think I'm gonna go with Tucson on this because I mean,
Wow.
it's no shortage of legendary coaching over there either with Billy Beck, man. It's hard to kind of it's hard to pick against them in the situation that they're in right now. They know where they stand. I think the at the beginning of the game this past week against Duke City, he was interviewed and he said himself that he knows that the last half or this portion of the season is critical. You know, they want to pull out, they want to try and win all eight of their last games, but in the case that they can't, you know, they can't afford to be on the losing end. So I think they're gonna put on a show and surprise a lot of people. So I would definitely love to see that go down this week.
All right, Malcolm is back to living dangerously. It only took, coming back on the show to be like, oh, this is what's going to happen. So since we're different on an even number of games, tiebreakers got to be points. So
Yeah.
if we're both right, 1-1, then it's whoever team that they picked right beat the other team by. Like if it's a if it's a whooping, then that
Mhm.
point spread. So if the one game I get right is by 20 and the one game you get right is by 14, then the tie would go to me. We'll get it figured out, but that is our pick 'em for week number 13. We still got a good chunk of season left, but it's starting to take shape. You can check out my power rankings on Instagram, X, and of course Facebook. And then you can see us on YouTube. See, we're back. We're here. And
Yeah.
of course, if that's not your thing, then you can listen to us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and then Apple Podcasts, and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Express Radio at live365.com. So don't forget to check out
Mhm.
Malcolm's Pie to the Face on social. We're going to have that on repeat for a while. It's going to be a good
Man.
one. I can't wait to see this thing. And then we're back to picking new punishments next week because after a 2-week break because of vacation and COVID, we are back doing what
Mhm.
we enjoy. I don't care how many clicks or likes we get on each episode or on social. Me and Malcolm, we just have way too much of a good time on here to care about any of that. So we're
All the
having fun
time, man.
doing
All
it.
the time.
We hope you guys enjoyed as well. This has been episode 490. So for Father Malk, I'm the T-Man, Richard T-Man. This has been the Fan Show, and we will see you next time.